the liberal media intelligentsia provided a case study of what denial looks like. Don't be fooled by the ladies of MSNBC joining forces to jovially mock voters who express concern about the migrant crisis. Because if one looks closely enough, you can see that Wojak mask slipping. I suspect they're actually panicking about the vulnerabilities of the Democratic Party as we barrel toward the general election. They absolutely should be panicking, by the way.
Anna Kasparian's honesty about the border crisis is something I really respect. This is what a real populist left figure like Anna Kasparian should care about. Prioritizing national interests isn't a bad thing, especially when it comes to real issues like illegal immigration. Anna Kasparian is not just smart. She's right about the immigration crisis. I didn't watch The Young Turks much before, but whether you agree or disagree with Anna Kasparian and The Young Turks, the show is great now. This is the kind of honest, real talk about illegal immigration and the migrant crisis that could move the country forward.
They're increasingly, from the Tea Party on, they're voting on race. They're voting on this idea of an invasion of brown people over the border. They're just voting specifically on racial animus. At this stage, it isn't about economics.
No, which is why Trump killed the immigration bill.
Correct.
That's why. And because otherwise, he can't run against the other and brown people and people who don't look like him. I mean, if you look at some of these exit polls, I mean, I live in Virginia. Immigration was the #1 issue. I mean, again, these could change in Virginia.
Well, Virginia does have a border with West Virginia. Very contested area.
Build the wall.
As Super Tuesday election results trickled in last night, the liberal media intelligentsia provided a case study of what denial looks like. Don't be fooled by the ladies of MSNBC joining forces to jovially mock voters who express concern about the migrant crisis. Because if one looks closely enough, you can see that Wojak mask slipping. I suspect they're actually panicking about the vulnerabilities of the Democratic Party as we barrel toward the general election. They absolutely should be panicking, by the way. Unfortunately, instead of hearing voters out, the women of MSNBC have chosen ignorance and denial instead.
Every election cycle, particularly when there's a Democratic incumbent, we get reminded about the borders. And the borders become a thing again. And then if there's a Republican in office, we don't think about them anymore. It's the deficit and the border. Like you make these things an issue, you make them into boogeymen, you make them into something that grabs you from under the bed at night as soon as you wake up. As long as there's a Democratic incumbent to blame on it, you make sure that nothing's ever done to fix either. And then you hope that people stop talking about them once you've got a Republican in office.
Now, look, I'm sure that there have been many examples of political opponents to Democrats exaggerating claims of immigration, but this ain't it. There's very clearly a migrant crisis. In December alone, 300,000 people crossed the border in just 1 month. And there are local communities who have been really struggling to appropriately respond to the influx of migrants who have arrived into their cities. And look, for viewers who have convinced themselves that the denial demonstrated by the gaggle of gals on MSNBC is in no way indicative of progressives, I have unfortunate news for you.
The idea that Republicans, in order to win an election, say we need to hermetically seal the border when they know that is economic self-sabotage to the US economy. And they are saying, let's do it anyway, while ginning up this false narrative about this being a crisis. And there is not only no moral calculation.
This is a classic case of playing on emotions to guilt Americans into accepting something that doesn't make sense. The public is upset, and they have every right to be upset about illegal immigration. It's not about race, it's about resources. When illegal immigration goes unchecked, it stretches the system thin, and people feel the pressure. Even if some of these people find jobs or fit in culturally, many don't, and the consequences of illegal immigration build up over time. This is the exact reason Anna Kasparian and others are speaking out about the migrant crisis.
There is no economic calculation. There is no logical calculation. There is only a political calculation. And that political calculation is we are going to keep whining about it. We are going to keep pretending this is a crisis.
Pretending that this is a crisis. Look, I'm sad to say that Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is wrong. What's really unsettling is that she should know there's a migrant crisis. After all, she represents a district in New York where local officials have struggled to find shelter for the 171,000 plus migrants who arrived in the city recently. AOC herself addressed the migrant crisis just last September in front of the Roosevelt Hotel in New York City. Now you tell me if
you've got thoughts on how New York is handling this migrant crisis, I'd love to hear them. Do you think they're managing the immigration crisis well, or is the city on the brink? Drop your thoughts below. Let's get back to it.
Doesn't look like a crisis to you.
Increase federal resources to cities and municipalities dealing with this issue. The second is to allow for work authorizations so that folks in here can get to work and start supporting themselves as soon as possible. They are prevented from getting jobs, they are prevented from employment, and that is part of the strain on our public systems.
Get barriers for who? For who? For us? For the United States? No, you come down. You're complicit in destroying our city. You come down, you oath breaker. You never go to sleep at night. Hey, but come here. Yeah, I got you.
We might have millions of people watching this show, but you can.
False impression, of course, that people are worked up about our broken immigration system, right? If you think
Here's the reality. When people come into a country illegally, they overwhelm the system. Illegal immigration isn't just about more people. It's about resources getting stretched thin, jobs, housing, everything. And when immigrants don't adjust to the new environment, that's when you see the real trouble start. This isn't just happening here. Look at other first world countries. They're already dealing with chaos. People are fighting for resources, cultures clash, and when that happens, we all know what's next. Civil war. It might sound extreme, but that's where we're headed if nothing changes with illegal immigration.
Think that, you're also wrong, but that's okay. Because anecdotal evidence is oftentimes extremely misleading. So let's actually take a step back and take a broader look at broad public opinion in New York. For example, a Quinnipiac University poll just last September found that 62% of voters said that they agreed with New York City Mayor Eric Adams' statement from September, where he said that an influx of migrants will destroy the city. I really hate the framing of that question because it makes it seem like there's something inherently negative or nefarious about migrants, and there just isn't. Most of these people came to America to work hard and build better lives for themselves and their families. That takes tenacity, resilience, and the willingness to take risks that I admire. I'll always feel deep gratitude for having the privilege of growing up in Reseda, California, a community where the majority of residents consisted of Latino immigrants. They've enriched my life. I'm a child of immigrants myself, and we are a nation of immigrants. It's important to remember that. However, our immigration system is absolutely broken, and there are loopholes in our laws that human traffickers, unfortunately, are well versed in. These loopholes allow for the unmanageable influx of migrants into the country at a time when we don't have enough judges to process asylum claims. And this also comes at a time when we clearly have a shortage of housing for American citizens. According to that same Quinnipiac poll, a whopping 85% of New York City voters are either very concerned or somewhat concerned that the city will not be able to accommodate the surge in migrants who have sought sanctuary in the city and their right to worry.
Anna Kasparian has made a good case here, but polling doesn't tell the whole story. It's one thing for 62% to agree that migrants are causing problems, but if nobody's passionate enough to vote on it, does it really matter? It's like how universal healthcare polls Well, but where's the energy to actually push it through? Same with illegal immigration. Even with all the concerns about illegal immigration, Joe Biden won in 2020. So clearly it wasn't a top priority for most voters. And now Eric Adams is challenging the system, pointing out the loopholes and dangers that come with the migrant crisis. Yeah, the housing crisis is real. Rent's high because of supply and demand, and adding more people through illegal immigration only drives those prices up. Anna Kasparian has made a good case here, but polling doesn't tell the whole story. It's one thing for 62% to agree that migrants are causing problems, but if nobody's passionate enough to vote on it, does it really matter? It's like how universal healthcare polls well, but where's the energy to actually push it through? Same with illegal immigration. Even with all the concerns about illegal immigration, Joe Biden won in 2020, so clearly it wasn't a top priority for most voters. And now Eric Adams is challenging the system, pointing out the loopholes and dangers that come with the migrant crisis. Yeah, the housing crisis is real. Rent's high because of supply and demand, and adding more people through illegal immigration only drives those prices up. And that's the bottom line. We're seeing these issues with illegal immigration, the housing crisis, and people like Anna Kasparian stepping up to challenge a broken system. But the question is, will it be enough? Let me know what you think about all this. Are we heading toward real change, or is this just more political talk? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like and subscribe.